Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. So right now we are going to continue our second part of the GraphQL tutorial, especially with the use of Apollo server. Alright, so let's just continue where we were the last time. I'm just going to close the door. Okay, so we had our file here, and if you remember, we installed Apollo server and GraphQL the last time. So here we have our two files, and now we want to define our GraphQL schema to begin with. So every GraphQL server, including Apollo server, uses a schema to define the structure of data that clients can query. In this example, we create a server for querying collection of books by title and author. Okay. So right now we are just going to be typing all this stuff. So there is a lot of comments. Obviously, so how do we can definitely just copy and paste it, but we won't do that. So what is happening right now is just for the practice. So I'm just going to import Apollo server, Apollo server from at Apollo. So we've actually what is happening right now is that it seems that we are going to be using. So at the end of the day, I actually prefer copying because it seems long, and I'm not sure if I'm using nvim, but I'm not sure if the LSP is working for TypeScript. So let's just copy and paste it. So basically we are just importing the server and then the Apollo server and then the standalone server. So here we are just going to see that a collection is a schema is a collection of type definitions, hence type def. So there are two things to know. It's type def, and the other one is I can't remember the name, but we will come across it. Resolvers, type definitions and resolvers. So we come to it in a few minutes. So in between, what I did was just go through almost the entire GraphQL documentation. So what I can say is quite heavy. There is a lot of things to learn in it. So let's just come here and we just copy and paste small bit by bit. But first, let's hide this. So const type def, and then we are here. It's about the GraphQL um, notation. So it's a comment actually. So we will start with the type book. We are using the backtick because it enables us to have multi-line string. Okay, let's do it. Type book. So we have a type book. So notice that it's just type book. It reminds me a lot of TypeScript itself. Let's have a title, string, and then we have an author. So it's a bit different because it's not like a typical object, because with object we should have like comma here, but we don't have this. And then with I missed it. With type book done, let's go to type query. Okay, type query. So this is the root query. So here we've defined book above, and then below we are just going to have a query books, which is of type book, and then that's it. So the interesting part in it is, can we define type query above? So I'm not sure, but if I have time I will look into it. So we've already done returning those two. So we are using template literal, providing GraphQL syntax highlighting. Okay, I don't think I have this with NeoVim, and it might take me a while to install it. So if you have Visual Studio Code, I think it's or WebStorm, I think it's straightforward. Now we need to define your dataset. Now that we've defined the structure of our data, we can define the data itself. So first we define the structure, now the data. Apollo Server can fetch data from any source you connect to, including a database, a REST API, a static object storage service, or even another GraphQL server. Very interesting, makes sense. For the purposes of this tutorial, we'll hard code our example data, of course, make it easier to understand. Add the following to the bottom of your index.ts file. Okay, so at the bottom here, I'm pretty sure we need to add the semicolon. Let's just confirm that we have a semicolon here. Okay, that's done. Here we can copy and paste, so maybe just for the fun I will type it. And that's good, but this one is a little bit too much work. Okay, so of course the issue of indentation. Normally you want to use a type of prettier plugin, so when you paste or when you save, it just reformats your code automatically so that you don't need to think about it. Now the second part is very important, is to first remember we define our data, the structure of our data, and second, once we have the source for our data, we need to define a resolver that's going to take, based on the input we give it, it's going to return the data. So we've defined our data set, but Apollo Server does not know that it should use the data set when it's executing a query. To fix this, we create a resolver. Okay, resolvers tell Apollo Server how to fetch the data associated with a particular type. Because our book array is hard-coded, the corresponding resolver is straightforward. Just need to add at the bottom of your index.ts file this particular constraint. So okay, this one looks simple enough. Let's just copy paste it. Just decrease this one. Okay, let's go. Constant resolvers. It's an object, and with this object we are going to create query key, and query key will have is another object with key books, and will refer to books. So I'm not sure which books are we talking about. So normally right now, just for the sake of simplicity, we are doing everything in index.ts file, but usually I think you separate the query and the resolvers in separate files. So I'm not sure how it works yet, but hopefully we have more example later on. Create an instance of Apollo servers. We've defined our schema, dataset, and resolver. Now we need to provide this information to Apollo server when we initialize it. Add the following to the bottom of your index file. Yeah, we add everything to the bottom as usual. The Apollo server constructor requires two parameters, your definition and your set of resolvers. Okay, so our definition is type def, our definition is here, string interpolated, and then our resolvers is here. Okay, very simple so far. Let's begin to type it down. My door keeps opening by itself. Maybe the wind. Okay, server, new Apollo server. And here we have our constructor that takes the type def and resolvers. That's good. So it uses, yes, so we think it's good practice to include the other semicolon as well. Now we need to create the standalone server, which is going to be listening at port 4000 and should give us this message. Okay, let's type this part as well. Okay, just put everything in the center. Icons, so we are going to be destructuring our URL is equal to, so we assign a start alone server with server, and then this is the simple object to say that we are going, this is a basic configuration, and I think that's pretty good. And now we are going to console log. Wow, do I need to type all that? I thought I had the snippet, but I don't. Okay, fair enough. So I'm not sure how it super works. So this is beautiful, and I think it's best to just copy paste it. Okay, we got it running right now. So this tutorial uses Apollo Server's standalone web browser. If you like to integrate Apollo Server with your favorite web frameworks such as Express, see our intro. Oh, yeah. Why not? Let's just have a look. Meanwhile, start the server. Okay, so we are going to use the temporary server here. Wow, it's very strange. Maybe the font is too big, but it's good because you can see everything on the screen. npm start. Do we have a start command? Yeah, we don't have actually. I don't remember having seen one actually. So this is a very good question to have. So let's just tab. Yeah, I remember I changed it, but I think the page didn't save, so it's not a problem because I'm actually used to either RubyMine, WebStorm, or Visual Studio Code with the setting that actually we don't have it, to be honest. Let's see the settings that the file, the modified changes are saved automatically on Blood. So I found a gap. It doesn't say any place how to npm start. Yeah, yeah, that's not a problem because we can even if we don't have this, we don't need to depend on this. We can just npm clear npm run start npm run. Okay, not as specified, so it's very interesting. I forgot how to do it, to be honest. npm run npm start. Wow, that's a lot of time ago that I've not used TypeScript. So let's just see why it's not working. Okay, I already have this page open. I'm sure I did the change at some point. Let's just go over it again. So yes, install dependencies. Yeah, I think yeah. Here, okay, yes. Do I have this file? So yeah, I just paste copy paste, and then yes, here it is. Absolutely, I knew I didn't save the file. That's one of the problem with using NeoVim. Not really NeoVim, but I think it's problem with the I'm using NVChad, so there's some configuration done for me. Okay, so make sure you don't miss it. And the only thing that when you're learning a new framework or library is that you need to follow all the steps one after the other and make sure not to miss them. But this happened, don't worry. So here on npm run compile, and here we go. Just need to run this, our temporary. Okay, it's nice. So this is nice. It's now working as expected. So this is good news. We go again. We go back towards our npm start. So we don't even need to start our server because it's already done here. So what's happening here is that we are using TypeScript. So TypeScript need to be converted to JavaScript, and this is what this command says. And then we are just rendering the converted JavaScript using Node, and it will give us that the server is ready at port 4000. Oh, that's good. So we can try it. Localhost HTTP copy, and then we try it here. Does it work? Yeah, it's very bright screen, but of course the good thing with Apollo client is that it gives us this kind of purple bluish color. I don't even know how it works. So this is the Apollo server, and so let's understand how it works together. We can now execute GraphQL queries on our server, Nice. To execute our first query, we can use Apollo Sandbox. Oh, that's the name. The name is called Apollo Sandbox. Ha. The sandbox is loaded with the schema from your endpoint's introspection rather than a schema from the studio registry. As such, some of the features here are limited. So let me guess. You need to pay for the studio? I think because this tool seems a bit too powerful to be just free like that. Okay, the Sandbox UI includes an operations panel for writing and executing queries in the it's the middle, a response panel for viewing query results on the right. Okay, tabs for schema exploration on the left. Okay, here we explore the stuff. Here we get the results on the right, and in the middle we write almost whatever we want. And a URL bar for connecting to other GraphQL servers in the upper left. So that is quite interesting. Our server supports a single query named books. Let's execute it. Okay, here's a GraphQL query string for executing the books query. So this is how it works. So let's try it. And this is the name of the query. Here's the books, and here's the title. Exam. So when we execute it, we get the title. So first we are looking. So like I said earlier, with GraphQL, whatever the structure that you pass the data, you receive the same structure back. So we have our query. It will return us our data object, and then we have books, and then we are asking for the title, and of course it returns us a list of books with the title. So let's see. Here it says title and author. Let's try to add the author and see what happens. So inventory. So like you see with the GraphQL, you don't need to add the comma. But let's try to see what happens if you add the comma, because I think it's good to make mistakes. So I don't think it's an issue, but let's remove it because we want to keep our code as simple as possible. So it works. So it's fantastic actually for this small example. Okay, we got it. Paste the string into the operation panel and click the blue button in the upper right. The results from our hard-coded dataset appear to be in response panel. Very good. So what I also know that if you're going to do only queries, you can actually avoid the query. But let's try it. Let's try it to be sure. You can just put the books. No, it doesn't work like that. You need the query actually. So yeah, it's fair. It's fair enough. Note, if Apollo Sandbox can find your schema, ensure that you have introspection enabled by passing introspection through to the Apollo server constructor. I think we don't have that. We recommend disabling introspection for production, of course. One of the most important concepts of GraphQL is that clients can choose to query only the fields they need, delete author from the query string and execute it again, and the response update to include only the title field for each. Yeah, is it true though? Is it true? So if we remove the title, it will work. That's true. That's the power of GraphQL. Okay, complete example. You can view and fork the complete example of Contember. Next steps. So what is the next steps? This example application is a great starting point for working with Apollo Server. Check out the following resources to learn more about the basics of schema, resolvers, and generating types. Nice. Want to learn how to modularize your GraphQL API? Check out the Apollo Federation docs to learn how a federated architecture can create a unified supergraph. Wow, this sounds really good, but maybe if we have more time we can go into it. So very good. So just before we are out for today, let's see this one, the list of integration. So how can you integrate Apollo Server with your existing framework? Apollo Server 4 includes the built-in integration, start standalone server and express middleware. So I think this one is for Node.js specifically. Yeah, it's everything Node.js, but what if you have another technology like Ruby on Rails? So this is going to be different for sure. So I hope you enjoy this little tutorial. I just completed what I started with GraphQL, and I use Apple server, which makes it a bit easier. But it's the same concept. It's just a server to run it. Okay, so I think it's good. If you have any question, let me know. And of course, I think whenever I have some more time, I will create sample projects because I think that's the easier way to learn. We can learn together. We can learn from different types of project. Let's say we want to create a to-do list to begin with, of course, the perfect project to learn, and then maybe something more applicable in our daily life. For example, I know that one of the projects I usually create with when I'm learning a new framework or library is to create a parking application API or the front end or even a roster application. So it's all fair enough. The endpoint is to learn and to learn as direct as possible. And that's it. Hope you have a good time. Enjoy.